When the topic of skateboarding in the Olympics first started being talked about a few years ago, there was a good bit of backlash from skateboarders who felt like it wasn't a good move for the skateboarding community. No! Fast forward a few years and the idea seems to have become much more embraced by skateboarders, and in just a few weeks, skateboarding will officially make its Olympic debut. Now, even though more people are on board with the idea, and it might end up helping the skateboarding community in the long run, there's still some drawbacks that everyone should be aware of. In this video, we're going to go over why skateboarding shouldn't be in the Olympics. Whether you agree or disagree, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments because there's definitely a lot that can be said about it. Be sure to leave a like on the video, check out my second channel linked in the description, and with that said, let's get right into it. To start things off, skateboarding doesn't need validation. I've heard a lot of skaters say that putting skateboarding in the Olympics is a good thing because it'll finally validate skateboarding and prove to people that it's a legitimate way to spend your time. Well, the problem that I have with that is that skateboarding doesn't really need mainstream approval just to be validated. There's a quote by the great and powerful Tony Hawk where he says that the Olympics needs our cool factor more than we need their validation, and I feel like that's 100% true. Skateboarding was valid to skaters back when they were just skating backyard pools, and it's still valid to skaters now that they're skating international contests. If someone needs mainstream validation to keep skating, then they're probably skating for the wrong reasons to begin with. It doesn't really matter what the mainstream opinion is because public opinion changes all the time, and at the end of the day, if they don't skate themselves, then they'll never truly understand it anyway. So reason number 2 is that there's no clear winner in skateboarding. Well, except for Battle at the Barracks, that's pretty straightforward. If you look at almost any Olympic sport, it's pretty easy to figure out who won. Someone either ran the fastest, they jumped the highest, or they threw a ball the furthest. With skateboarding though, it's much more nuanced than that. There's already enough debate internally with skateboarders when it comes to contests like Street League, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like at an Olympic level. Skateboarding is such a subjective thing that it's hard to imagine a panel of Olympic judges not having a bias because most skateboarders do. I mean, let's just take a look at styles. Some skaters prefer a more chill, laid-back style, while other skaters might prefer a more fast-paced, aggressive style, and there's no way to say which one is better since it mostly comes down to opinion. Not only that, but every skater skates a little differently. For example, everyone knows that skating switch is harder than skating regular. For some people though, certain tricks are actually easier switch than regular, so it can be kind of hard to give an accurate score. Aside from that, there's also the issue of course design. One skater might be known for being really technical and having quick feet when they're skating, and another might just be known for skating big rails. To me, it just seems like skateboarding is hard enough to judge on a small scale, let alone on an international level. Now before going into the next reason, I want to talk about Morning Brew, which is a free daily newsletter that I read pretty much every morning. For the average skater, their morning consists of mindlessly scrolling through Instagram for an hour, and then eventually rolling out of bed and starting their day. Instead of doing that, I like to start my day reading Morning Brew because it has condensed news about business, finance, and tech that are actually interesting to read. For example, I just found out that Mackenzie Scott just donated $2.7 billion to charity. I also learned about a new collaboration that Kanye West had with Gap, where they released a $200 jacket that sold out in just a few hours. These are both stories that I don't think I would have heard about otherwise. It's completely free to sign up, and it only takes 15 seconds to subscribe, so there's really no reason not to. All you have to do is click the link in the description to get started, and with that said, let's get back to the video. So the next reason is that Olympic skateboarding is actually run by rollerbladers. I know, crazy, right? Basically, every country has their own governing body for skateboarding that's usually run by people who skate. Those governing bodies then have to report to an organization run by rollerbladers that essentially acts as a middleman for the Olympics and each individual country. Now, some of you might think that it's not a big deal, but having rollerbladers in charge of skateboarding in the Olympics has already caused a ton of problems, which is pretty much to be expected since they have no idea how skateboarding works. The whole thing is just a perfect example of how people who don't skate are unable to understand skateboarding. I don't want to go into too much detail on this, but I'll leave a link to a Transworld article in the description that kind of explains the whole thing a little better. The next reason is that Olympic skating only helps out some skaters. One of the most common reasons skaters give as to why skateboarding should be in the Olympics is that it can help give professional skaters a decent salary. It's pretty well known that most professional skaters don't actually make that much money, and there's only a small group of pros who actually earn significant incomes from sponsors. Well, the problem with this is that the same pros who are currently making most of the money are going to be the same ones skating in the Olympics, so it's not like every pro skater is going to magically get a bigger paycheck. Instead of bringing in more money to the lower paid pros, it's really only going to give more money to the top paid pros who are already making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to begin with. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the top guys earning more because they definitely put in the work and you never know how long a skate career will last, but saying that skateboarding in the Olympics will help pro skaters earn more money is a little disingenuous since the ones making the money were already well paid before the Olympics. The next reason is that skate career shouldn't be all about the Olympics. With almost all sports that are already in the Olympics, the people competing are training year-round solely for the purpose of winning a medal. Well, they're also doing it so they can get millions of dollars from sponsors, but that kind of just comes as a side effect. They might enter other contests and events along the way, but I can guarantee you that the people who throw those metal balls aren't out there filming street parts the same way that skateboarders are. A lot of them start training when they're just kids, and their entire existence is centered around winning the Olympics. Now, I'll admit that a certain level of competition is good since it can help push progress, but Olympic athletes are known for taking things too far, and that's something that skateboarding would be better off without. There's countless stories of people cheating in the Olympics, or kids being taken from their families to compete on an Olympic team, and I just hope that things like that don't start happening in skateboarding. I mean, just imagine if some pro skaters got caught taking performance enhancements, or if some country forced a bunch of kids to become robot skaters. People just take the Olympics so seriously that it starts to cloud their judgment, and even though that might work well with other sports where competing and winning is the only goal, I don't think it's something that works well with skateboarding. The next reason is that the Olympics is actually kind of corrupt. I know most skaters probably don't watch the Olympics, or at least not yet anyway, so they might not know this, but there's been a ton of cases of judges being bribed, people taking performance enhancers, and just other weird sketchy stuff happening in the Olympics. The thing is, it's not like all of these situations are super old either. A lot of them are fairly recent, so it might be safe to assume that there's probably certain things going on right now that a lot of people just don't know about. At least when it comes to major skate contests like Tampa Pro or Street League, people can be somewhat sure that there wasn't anything sketchy going on. I'm not saying other contests haven't had problems, but when you're on a smaller scale, then there isn't as much incentive to try to cheat. Another reason is that putting skateboarding in the Olympics is kind of selling out skate culture. A ton of people have been saying that it's good that skateboarding is in the Olympics because it'll bring in more money, more companies, and more sponsors, but I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Just like that Tony Hawk quote from earlier said, they need skateboarding more than skateboarding needs them. Skateboarding made it decades without the help of matching uniforms and mainstream companies, and even if skateboarding was never added to the Olympics, it would continue to carry on. The companies and sponsors that come into skating because of the Olympics don't care about skateboarding or the well-being of skateboarders, they just care about using it as a trendy way to market their products. Now, I'm not against companies paying people or even having larger companies involved in skating. I just don't think the skate community should openly welcome in whatever company is willing to bid the highest. I understand that skate parks need to be built and skateboarders need sponsors, but there's a certain finesse to it where you can balance things out. Aside from just the companies though, I also don't think the people watching it really care about skating either. Maybe I'm being a little too critical here, and I really do hope that I'm wrong, but that's just how it seems to me. I'm sure that there'll be actual skaters who come about because of the Olympics, which is definitely a good thing, but I feel like the only reason why they decided to add skateboarding in the first place is because they wanted something cool to get young people to watch. I know I've given a lot of reasons as to why skateboarding shouldn't be in the Olympics, but I also think there will likely be some good things to come out of it. More people are going to start skating, more skate parks are going to be built, and the limits of skateboarding in general are going to get pushed. I just hope that somehow the positives manage to outweigh the negatives. If you have any of your own thoughts about it, go ahead and share them in the comments. Be sure to leave a like on the video. Check out my gaming channel linked in the description. And with that said, thanks for watching.